Hello folks, welcome to another edition of the ABB PLC programming tutorials. In this video I'm going to show you how to update the firmware on a new AC500 ABB PLC. My name is Brighton. Let's dive in. Alright, so I'm going to be updating the firmware of this PLC that I have here. So it's a PM530, as you can see there, and I've got this module, this option module. It's just for Profinet communication, yeah, and this one is just a dummy module, just to just cover that slot there. So this PLC I have connected on Ethernet port 1. So you notice there's two Ethernet ports. So I have on Ethernet port number 1, I have put this cable, connected this cable here, and this is the power supply cables for the PLC, and this here is a memory card. So I have a memory card already inserted in there. Okay, so if I am to switch on this, because this is a new CPU, it will then tell me that it needs a firmware update. Okay, so let's switch it on. There we go. Update. So what that means is that it requires a firmware update there. So what we just need to do is to we will go to our software, to Automation Builder. So we double click on the PLC. Then we go to communication settings, and under communication settings, if we are to go to scan network, we'll notice that it has already scanned the network and it has picked up our PLC, and notice that it then tells us that this PLC requires a firmware update. That's why you have your update there, and well, it gives us as well the default IP address of the CPU and the MAC address. So what we need to then do now is to go to version information. So we go to version information, and we notice that the firmware version, the current firmware version and the required versions, there is a mismatch there. That's why the state is in this red color there. So what we just need to do is simply to click on update firmware, and then the Automation Builder and the PLC, they deal with one another and the firmware is updated. So I will click now update firmware. So it's updating now. Takes a bit of time, maybe 2 minutes or something. So I will now power cycle, or cycle the power. Okay, let me now just check if now the firmware versions are equal now. So if I go back again to version definition or version information, so you see they are the same now. So this is how you would update the firmware of a new AC500 CPU. The other way, or the other method of doing this, would be to export the firmware into a particular directory on your computer, and then copy that onto an SD card. The SD card, you then take it and put it onto the CPU. Okay, so you just come to your project application, you right click, you go to export, then firmware SD card. So we're basically exporting to a particular folder. So say on the desktop I create a folder, a new folder called firmware, let's just say FM. Okay, so into that folder now, that's where I will into that folder, that's where I will export into that. So it's just saying, note that the created SD card does not contain user data, the remnant data, config data, safety PLC power dip data, and safety PLC password. Please add this data if required by your application. Okay, so we'll just say okay. So it is this on the desktop, it is this folder now that whose contents we'll just copy onto, you know, the SD card, and then that SD card we put it into our SD card slot on the CPU, and then we cycle the power on the CPU, and then that will ensure that it will update the firmware. Okay, so these are the two methods of updating the firmware on a new AC500 CPU.